Oh, look, we have another summer of love right on cue. And here come the politicians that are enabling it, tied to communists. What's really going on here is now there's talks of Palantir intervention against the protest that happened last night in Los Angeles that clearly highlight how there will be a lot of disruptions, a lot of protests, a lot of orchestrated and organized chaos in this world that will absolutely be disrupting Donald J. Trump. Now, how will he deal with these types of destructions? It's something that we're going to be talking about here. We got some libertarians saying some crazy, wild stuff here, like they usually do. But I think it's worth considering the actual facts of this case, what's really going on here, and just how fast a lot of this kind of is expanding and probably will be expanding in major liberal democratic cities and states all throughout the United States, creating a very kind of tense situation for everyone, just like we saw during the BLM riots, all of which we were predicting. We were saying, hey guys, just wait until the summer. We're building up to something grand, something big here. And I think we are finally seeing it right now. As, of course, it looks like a lot of online internet sleuths have just identified the man that was throwing rocks at DHS vehicles in Los Angeles yesterday. There was other protesters that decided to conduct weird acts of property damage that had nothing to do with ICE or immigration. Again, we're going to be talking about and showing you all this stuff. Subscribe, click the notification button. But they just decided, oh, there's a random truck here. Let's pour gas on it. And then I wonder what's going to happen next. Oh, yeah, that seems like a very smart, wise decision. Yeah, let's get right up on it. Wow, yeah. What are you doing? What did you think was going to happen here? As a lot of protesters burned cars, burned property, damaged property, vandalized property, and then were waving their Mexican flags here, as we have White Lenka saying, it's funny that people with the Mexican flag believe that the worst possible punishment is to go to Mexico. U.S. General Michael Flynn said that the Antifa goal for this summer is to counter Trump at every single turn of his presidency. President Trump said, from now on, masks will not be allowed, and called Governor Newsom incompetent. Now, I have a mixed feeling about this mask stuff and this Palantir stuff that some people are talking about here. But clearly, last night we have seen the need for federal intervention as the National Guard swooped in order to deal with the huge amounts of protests that were disrupting the ICE federal facility from conducting its immigration raids and its deportations, as Donald Trump sent 2,000 troops to this protest, as this protest started on Friday when ICE agents who were arresting immigrants across the city were dealt with a lot of people protesting them. And then, of course, this built up to smaller protests and then bigger protests. We have seen storefronts that were smashed, fires that were started. And again, it's not really that smart to light fires in Los Angeles, of all places, like we learned recently. There was a field that was lit on fire by some protesters. There's people like literally coming in there like with bottles of water trying to douse it out. And why are you trying to light entire fields on fire in Los Angeles? After the night of protest, military trucks rolled up to the, quote, Hall of Justice near City Hall. Troops were spotted driving through Paramount, one of the hardest hit areas. Trump applauded the guard and slammed L.A. Mayor Karen Baskin, a communist, and Governor Gavin Newsom, a super communist, for, quote, losing control. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said troops were being sent immediately to help federal agents. The guard is now camped outside of the L.A. detention center where arresting immigrants are being processed. Obviously, we are seeing the LAPD, the governor, the mayor, not really do anything about this, as federal agents were complaining and saying, I'm not allowed, I can't even do my work here. Then, of course, came in the National Guard, and then a lot of these confrontations happened. And you could see just a very intense video from these National Guardsmen as they were driving through the scenario. Just the level of severity that these protests are at and how they're probably going to be escalating from here. Looks like one of the guardsmen is shot of luck without any mask. Yeah, not the easiest of situations to deal with. Talk about a high pressure situation, as of course there were a number of hot spots, as a lot of these protests now are probably going to be happening in New York, in places like Chicago, in places like Washington, D.C., probably Baltimore, and many others. Now, Donald Trump is still trying to conduct a mass deportation operation, and there's a lot of these sanctuary cities with sanctuary city status that are being granted free healthcare, free services, free housing, that don't want to let go of their new immigrants that they have incentivized to come into the United States, that a lot of corporations are taking advantage of when it comes to, of course, hiring them and not hiring Americans. There's a lot to debate here, especially when it comes to the kind of Koch brothers plan here. But we're going to talk about this kind of ICE operation since some governors are complying. The governor of Illinois absolutely is not complying. But before talking about that and some of the more kind of unhinged libertarian and right-wing takes on here, because there's some, we want to tell you about LukeUnfiltered.com. If you haven't signed up to LukeUnfiltered.com, what are you doing? What are you waiting for? It's quick, it's easy, it's simple. And you click the link down in the description. All right, click it. Get here. And then you sign up for whatever you could afford. We cannot thank you enough for your generosity. Boom, bada bing. Put in a little bit of information. You get emailed back a login. Check your spam. It's just absolutely crazy how all of our emails just go to spam now. I don't know why, but it's like, hey, you paid for this. Here's your login credentials. Google's like, spam. Okay. Anyway, we're working on trying to fix that, and it's just been a big uphill battle. We work very hard here, and if you appreciate the 21 years. I mean, listen, last year we were telling, hey, next year, this is going to be a big protest year. As soon as Trump got elected, this is going to be a big protest year. There's probably going to be a lot of riots, and that's exactly what we are seeing here. If you appreciate our honesty to be able to talk about nuanced issues, not just in a totally blind, politically partisan way, subscribe. You got 13 plus years of videos, 3 masterclasses, seed oil cards, and really cool events and meetups. We are going to be doing another range day sometime in mid-July. Then we are also going to be, of course, doing a meetup with the Quartering on July 9th in Milwaukee. So if you're in Milwaukee, want to come out, want to meet me and the Quartering, hang out, grab a bite of food with us, and just to get to know really cool people as well. I'm going to be bringing some surprise guests as well. Sign up to LukeUnfiltered.com. When you do that, you support us and you allow independent media to grow in these very troubling, crazy times that are about to get a lot more crazy and troubled. I think that right there is the major constant here. Now, there's been some governors, like the governor of Florida, that have been participating with Donald Trump's deportation efforts, as well as a lot of other kind of right-wing conservative states that said, you know what, yeah, we'll help you. If someone here is illegally, especially if they're a criminal, we're going to make sure that they get kicked out. States like Washington, Oregon, California, Illinois have been making sure to sabotage federal efforts every way that they can, especially with the court systems, especially when it comes to applying resources, especially when it comes to lying to federal agents. There's federal agent raids that are being called out on social media before they actually happen. There's people within the ICE agencies that are going on social media within the federal government and saying, hey, they're going to raid this area and this area soon here. Cooperation between local law enforcement usually creates leaks. And a lot of the raids, a lot of the deportations, a lot of the criminals, in many instances that the federal government wants to, bring back to their home country of origin so they don't criminalize the local population, they're prevented from doing that. Now, it looks like California definitely is conducting a lot of kind of legal lawfare along with federal judges. And when it comes to this kind of lawless behavior, I mean, I just saw National Guard. I didn't see LAPD there, which is very interesting, as this heavy kind of military presence seen in downtown Los Angeles is probably going to be consistent. And this is going to now create the Streisand effect, and this is going to create a major center where people will gather and people will protest here. There's also a lot of reports of pallets of bricks that are being delivered to LA. I haven't independently verified this myself here, but the governor of California gave his verbal pallet of bricks to the people by saying, quote, "The federal government is taking over the California National Guard and deploying 2,000 soldiers in Los Angeles, not because there's a shortage of law enforcement." I didn't see LAPD do jack-ish. I haven't seen them in any of these crazy wild videos. There's people literally burning fields on fire and cars on fire. And he's like, "There's no shortage of police officers." As there's people literally doing wheelies. With their Mexican flag. Take Whitey out. Whitey back. No. Immigration me vete. No. Okay, I'm going to stop. But he says, Gavin Newsom, but because they want a spectacle. I don't think Donald Trump wants a spectacle. I think he wants to make sure that his agents are able to conduct their jobs and they're able to conduct his goal, which is to deport a bunch of people that came here illegally that, of course, are going to be the future Democratic powerhouse voters of California. We have seen Reagan, especially with the immigration policies that he implemented, that have created a scenario and situation where California is now overwhelmingly blue. Before that, it was red. As Gavin Newsom says, don't give them one. Don't give them a spectacle. Okay. Never use violence. Speak out peacefully. That wasn't happening. Okay. That's a weird kind of coy way of being like, yeah, we're rioting. Yeah, we're not sending police officers, but Trump's the bad guy. That's essentially what he's saying here, which is a little bit of a Riri comment on face value that isn't really intellectually sound. Now, where was this when Barack Obama was deporting way more illegals? There wasn't any kind of scene when Obama was doing this. I wonder why. Because this is being politically weaponized. And with this being politically weaponized the way it is, you could expect a lot of this. Gavin Newsom then took to social media saying the Secretary of Defense is now threatening to deploy active duty Marines on American soil against its own citizens. This is deranged behavior. LA's being burnt down. LA was burnt down because of your failed leadership. You had lesbian firefighters instead of acting fire hydrants. Like, you're a failure. Again, foreign nationals rioting, burning stuff down, no police response. I mean, some of the videos there were just wild. They were just pretty crazy seeing a lot of this type of scenarios kind of unfold here as we have MU saying America is facing an insurrection incited by Democrat political leaders and organized by Soros, USAID-backed NGOs in an effort to gain control of Congress. LA is ground zero, but expect uprisings in New York, Oregon, Washington, Illinois, and Minnesota. Yep, absolutely, 100%. There's still some Soros resources there and money there. But again, expect a lot of this. Let's just be real, especially with the attention that this is getting. Nicole Shanahan, who was the VP candidate when RFK Jr. was running for the presidency of the United States, came out and said, quote, "I smell CIA deep state all over this. Sanctuary cities like LA strategically encourage erratic and violent migrants to seek refuge and now are using them to violently attack federal law enforcement officers. They have no respect for our laws. They use our entitlements and they destroy our cities. This will be the fate of all sanctuary cities if we let this madness continue. Foreigners who live in your land will gain more and more power while you gradually lose yours. They will have money to lend you, but they will have none to lend them. In the end, they will be your rulers." These words were written thousands of years ago and still hold true today. Newsom and Bass want the altercation with Trump. They will trade a city on fire if it means they can score political points. Meanwhile, California suffers. Will we ever wake up from this nightmare? Nope, probably not. And this, of course, is the very iconic image that's being shared around last night of the protests, of the huge smoke, the fire, and a guy on a motorcycle with the Mexican flag. And again, nothing against Mexico. I love Mexico. But it's pretty clear the Democrats have created a scenario where they import cheap labor so they become represented in Congress and they're able to get more Democratic, crazy liberal members of Congress. And again, What did you expect? As The Atlantic even has this article here saying when the mayor of LA went to work in Castro's Cuba. You heard that correctly. In 1973, Bass, who's now a potential Biden VP pick, she's mayor of LA, traveled to Cuba with Veneracomas Bridges. Quote, I didn't have any illusions that the people in Cuba had the same freedom I did, she said. What? What a delusional, crazy person. Politico. Karen Bass renounces her praise for Fidel Castro. Okay, when you have political leaders worshiping Fidel Castro, what did you expect was going to happen here? I mean, I am not a fan of communists and crazy, insane liberals that want to centralize power and control in very brutalistic fashions like they historically always do, and they always epically fail, always creating starvation, mass human extinction, and just a very bad time for everyone. Now, this National Guard here, some people say, oh, no, it's too much. Well, the LAPD wasn't doing anything, but then I think there's also a fine line here, as now President Trump announced that masks will now be banned in protest. Listen, with the high-tech surveillance, facial recognition tech, I'm not the biggest fan of this, to be quite honest with me, because let's be real, if there's a liberal Democratic president and the right wing wants to protest, you bet your bottom dollar, they're going to implement this in various ways. Now, I'm not saying the right wing, Donald Trump, would implement this in the wrong ways. I mean, obviously, if you create property destruction or you try to hurt people and you hurt people, you should be held accountable, and these masks are preventing that from happening. But now, allowing this to happen will essentially... Listen, this is probably how it's going to play out here. I'm not a fan of this. I think we need more privacy. We need more anonymity. We need the less high-tech AI systems that are track tracing, databasing, and facial recognition everyone. I don't think this is a good move. Nick Schroeder says good. I disagree with him respectively because, again, when the Democrats come into power, they're going to be, oh, you were at this gathering. You were at this business that supports right-wing enterprises and ideas. Off to the gulag. And I'm like, wait, if I don't want to show my face, which is... your unique kind of identification. I don't need to. I shouldn't. Should there be more National Guard that actually deal with these crowds in a more kind of effective way where they're able to arrest the people who hurt people? And yes, absolutely. I agree with that. I disagree with Laura Loomer that says time to deploy Palantir to Los Angeles to deal with the illegals. Palantir is already being utilized to be used against the illegals, and it's also now building a database on all American citizens. Do I want to see Palantir tech used to deal with illegals? There's no old-fashioned ways that we could do this too. I don't think we need Palantir tech to do this as the dystopian kind of tech. Again, it's going to be just used against right-wingers and people who believe in freedom and people who believe in liberty. And I don't think that's a good thing to do here. Now, Donald Trump responded to all of this by saying, Trump explodes on two incompetent LA insiders responsible for pro-immigration riots and announces major crackdown on tactics used by protesters to escape capture. As Donald Trump said, great job by the National Guard in Los Angeles. After 2 days of violence, clashes, and unrest, we have an incompetent Governor Newsom and Mayor Bass, who were, as usual, just look at how they handled the fires, and now they're very slow permitting disaster. Federal permitting is complete, unable to handle the task. These radicals left protests by instigators and often paid troublemakers will not be tolerated. Also, from now on, masks will not be allowed to be worn at protests. I don't know how he's going to implement that. What do these people have to hide and why? Again, thank you to the National Guard. Listen, just because President Donald Trump decrees something doesn't make it true. We also learned about the Maryland man who's going to be brought back to the United States to face criminal charges. By the way. And Mayor Bass here says, quote, I want to thank the LAPD and local law enforcement for their work tonight. They weren't doing anything. And I've seen this too. I've seen this personally. I've seen this at the Battle of Berkeley. There's insane scenarios and situations where people are literally getting like bite locks over the head. And the cops are just like, oh. Really? You're not going to do anything? Newsom's response here is pretty hilarious in the face of all this. Do we need proper, good police work that is organized and orchestrated in a way where these violent things are dealt with, in a way where we still respect constitutional privacy and freedoms and rights? 100%. But was the National Guard right to be deployed here? I think so, especially with how the situation was unfolding. Expect this battle to get just wilder and crazier. I mean, now all the left-wing protesters are going to be probably going to LA, and there's going to be some major big confrontations there. There's some crazy kind of takes here by Rand Paul that I also disagree with. As the violence there, expect it to just expand, sadly. As that happens, we've been telling people on lukeunfiltered.com, move out of liberal democratic cities immediately. We said that like many, many years ago. The people who listened, you're welcome, because you don't have to deal with a lot of this kind of uncertainty of people trying to burn entire fields down in places that historically and usually deal with wildfires are devastating. Whoa. Why are we doing that? That's just stupid. Anyway, subscribe, click the notification button. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you guys doing that. And this is why I love you guys. Stay tuned for more, all here exclusively on youtube.com/wearechanging.